UFC 298 main event, we've got Alexander Volkanovski, man who has been dominating the 145-pound division for years, stepping up and defending his belt once again against the young lion, Ilia Topuria. Man, this is going to be a good fight, let me tell you. Now, when I think of Alexander Volkanovski, I really, truly think about a guy who can do it all. I mean, maybe I get it. He's not known for submissions or anything like that. I'm sure he's got a few in his belt. We don't really see him break him out. That's not his game. Nevertheless, when you really think about it, when you talk about him fighting, striking at distance, the man does amazing things. When you talk about him striking up close, great fighter. When you talk about the takedowns, when you talk about the takedown defense, when you talk about him being on the ground and getting up, when you talk about him being on the ground in top position, talk about him being in the cage, in the clinch, wherever the case may be, we don't exactly see a weak point in the man's game. Yeah, I get it. Islam Makhachev just went out and kicked his dude in the head and got him out of there, but we all know that that's not going to be the case at 145 pounds for the most part. We all know that Makhachev is a special guy. We all know what Alexander Volkanovski brings to the table. Man, I love the way this dude fights. And it's because he's mastered what the essence of fighting is in a lot of ways. He's mastered the distance, the gap right between him and his opponent, and he's mastered timing and rhythm. And it's like those are the most important things, man. You want to know what beats speed? Timing. You want to know what's going to be the young dude with all this explosiveness who can move all around and do crazy things? Timing. You want to know what's going to be able to beat a guy who's crafty and a veteran and he knows some stuff? Mastering the distance. Like if you can make the fight happen when and where you want the fight to happen versus when and where your opponent wants it to happen, you put yourself at such an advantage. Like it's one of those things that's like right off the gate, you're at such an advantage, and Volkanovski's a master at that. I love the way he allows his opponents to almost do what they want to do, right? Give you an example here, Max Holloway. You think about Max Holloway, what do you think about with him? He's using the feints, he's coming forward, best boxing in the game, we've been saying for how long? Likes to start getting his shots off, he starts to build momentum, starts to build a rhythm himself and gets going. Look at the fight with Volkanovski. You saw that start out by Volkanovski letting Max come forward. He's letting Max do what he wants in that way. Why? He's getting his own reads. He's figuring out the timing and the rhythm himself. And then all of a sudden, once he gets it, man, he starts to click. And it doesn't matter. If you start to come forward, he's going to find those spots to counter you. Maybe he counters you with a shot over the top. Maybe he counters with a combination. And I love the way that right afterwards, all of a sudden, he'll explode and start to get his own offense off. I love the way that he's great with his hands. Like I said, we talk about Max Holloway, best boxing in the game, but who outboxed him? 3-0, Alexander Volkanovski. I love the way that he can switch it up and go with the low kicks, which I think is going to be crucial in this fight. I mean, let's be honest with each other. Ilia Topuria, he comes out with this boxing stance and comes out with some hands, right? It's not just a boxing stance. He comes out with some hands. Like the dude throws great punches. When he goes out there and he lands, I mean, look at what he did. Look at what he's doing to Jai Herbert. Look at what he's doing to Bryce Mitchell. Look at what he's doing to Josh Emmett. Even though he didn't get the stoppage on him, man, he had dude looking rough early in the fight, second round. There's so much that he does well. Same type of thing in the sense that with his hands, man, he fights well at distance. He fights well really going forward, but he can also counter. Okay, let's not make a mistake. He can counter. He'll hold his ground. He'll fight in at that close distance. He'll get some shots off. He can counter as well. But really, he's a guy who likes to come forward. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think that's what's going to play the biggest difference in this fight. I don't think we're going to see a lot of takedowns. I don't think we're going to see a lot of takedown defense come into play. Both the guys are very well skilled in those areas. If it does happen, let's say Topuria gets a takedown. I think Volk will be able to get back up. Everybody talks about how strong this dude is. Everybody saw what Makhachev was not able to do in that first fight from a grappling perspective at 155 pounds. A beast like Islam Makhachev. So now we're back down at 145. We're talking about Ilia Topuria. If somehow, some way, Volk's on the bottom, I don't think he'll be able to keep him there. I think he'll be able to get back up. Now, if Volk's on top, if he's able to get the takedown, if it ends in a scramble, if he scores a knockdown in the striking department and then he's able to get on top, he may be able to stay there for a while, right? And it's because of the way he plays his game. It's like, I get it, man. Ilia Topuria, black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is crafty. We've seen him pull out some things before, but it's the way Volkanovski kind of like postures up and he's got like this tripod almost, and he's heavy and he gets in a good position and he understands where his hips are supposed to be relative to his opponent and leverage and pressure and everything else. So he may be able to stay on top for a little while. He may be able to get some good ground and pound in. Who knows? Get Topuria pushed up against the cage or something. May even be able to finish out the round in a way that we saw similar to Yair Rodriguez. But I think the majority of what we see in this fight, the real work that gets done and what decides who's going to be the winner, it's going to be done on the feet, right? And I think the key thing that we're going to see as far as what's going to make the difference, it's going to be Volkanovski's leg kick. If you allow Ilia Topuria to come forward, you allow him to start getting off his punches, you allow him to do what he wants, particularly for too long, he's going to be able to come through with those hands, man. I mean, look at that last fight. That last fight with Josh Emmett. Best opponent he's faced, best he's looked. Man, his hands were so crisp in that fight. His punches were clean. He was landing. He was showing good IQ. He was moving well. I mean, Josh Emmett was able to get some things off here and there. He was able to show some success when he was moving around on the outside. His team was calling for him to move to the right. His team was calling for him to create an angle and come over the top with the right. He worked the low kick at times, and it made a little difference. But he's not Alexander Volkanovski. When Volkanovski uses his movement, it's going to be different. When he closes the difference, it's going to be different. And one of the key things that's going to be different, along with that low kick that he's able to get at Topuria's lead leg, it's going to be the feints. Josh Emmett wasn't using any feints out there, and man, that makes such a huge difference, right? Now, here's the one thing that I'm concerned about. One thing that I'm concerned about is Volkanovski's headspace. Believe it or not, the man seems rock solid so many times. And I love the way he's active. I love the way he seems committed to the game. He's always out there, he's on top of it. But I'm just wondering about two things here, right? Number one, how much does he feel like he needs to come back and make a statement after the way he lost that last fight? I know he's salty about it, man. I get it. He's talking about how he's drinking up, every day going into the fight. He's taking it on short notice, completely underestimating. Well, maybe not underestimating, but just not doing what he needs to do to be ready for an opponent like that. Okay, he loses that fight. Loses it in devastating fashion when we're talking about that head kick knockout. Does he feel like he needs to prove something? Is he coming out there with a chip on his shoulder like he really needs to make something happen? And is it going to get him emotional? Is it going to put him in a bad headspace? Is it going to cause him to take a chance that he wouldn't normally take? Because the thing about Volkanovski is he's patient. He doesn't do what he doesn't need to do. He doesn't put himself in bad positions, man. Like, he understands that 25 minutes in a fight is forever. It's more time than he needs for the most part. That's number one. And then number two, we saw how we got. Topuria's been talking a little bit coming in this fight, talking about what he's going to do, how beast he is. He's got the camera crew following him around. He look at his Instagram bio, 15-0. He's talking about all the things that he's able to make happen. Volkanovski rightly comes out and says, I'm going to remind this young dude that there's levels to the game. Is that going to get him emotional? Is that going to have him in a space that won't have him quite make the right decisions? And then his age. He ain't no spring chicken. Now, all that being said, as good as both of these men are, I think it's going to be a phenomenal fight, but I think the champ is going to come up there and he's going to defend his belt successfully. I think he's just going to be able to see the success on the feet. I think we are going to see levels to the game. He's more versatile. He'll be able to get his shots off with the leg kicks that he's landing. I think Topuria is just not going to be able to really find that rhythm. There's going to be some times when he starts to overextend because he loses a little bit of that footwork and he loses that a little bit of the way that he wants to move as that lead leg starts to get chopped up. Puts himself in some bad spots, overextends a little bit. Volk is able to get some more counters off, cruises to a 5-round decision. Could he get a stoppage? Absolutely. Anything can happen, right? Both of these guys are beastie, but at the end of the day, I think Alexander Volkanovski walks away with another victory, and we're looking at this dude like, man, who is ever going to do anything to him at 145 pounds? Who's ever going to be able to go in there and do anything to him? If he walks away with a victory here and he looks dominant, it's like, just put him on Mount Rushmore already. Let me know what you guys think.